Hello, it's the Book Traveller, and I'll give you one guess today where I am. A little hint behind me over my right shoulder. Perhaps you can see um, the Eiffel Tower, which of course means I'm in Paris, France. Absolutely beautiful day here, and I popped along to the Trocadero to stand on the raised steps here, look across the gardens in towards the Eiffel Tower, and bring you the final two or three chapters of The Sanctuary, which I've been reading for a while now. Had a little bit of a break, but this is going to be the last three chapters of the book, so we're going to get right to the end and find out what's happening with Ben and Kara and the island and all the other things that have been going on, keeping us confused. So, go straight on with it. Chapter 31. There is a light before dawn, a gentle glow that spreads across the landscape like a blush, the first indication that night will end and daylight return. It rarely appears in portraits, but is one of the most beautiful hours of the day. As I reached the field surrounding the lodge, that light was arriving, and it gave me a sliver of hope. It was just before 5 in the morning. The ground floor of the house was open as usual, and the enormous entertaining room was cluttered with rejectamenta of the previous night's revelry. More than usual, too. Something had been celebrated. On the corridor upstairs, the door to John's room was ajar, and as I approached, the sound of his breathing, stertorous and regular, reached my ears. The heavy door made no sound as I nudged it, slowly, slowly, and I felt for a hideous moment as if I were looking in on a sleeping infant. As it opened, I saw his body stretched out, half covered by a single sheet. He lay on his back, his only movement the slow rise and fall of his chest, and the faint dawn breeze from the open roof stirred the thick black hair on his arms. One arm was thrown across his face, covering his eyes, so all I could see was his nose and the line of his mouth. There was a folding knife in my pocket, the one I had put there yesterday with the intention of trimming the canvas. It was in my hand before I knew it, and as I looked down, my fingers seemed to take the initiative from me and gently, silently eased it open. If we had left it too late, then any action I might take now would be superfluous. We might never learn the truth about this place. But if what Bianca had uncovered was even 1/10 true, one life didn't matter. If there was even the slightest change of changing things here, then the duty on me to take this step was overwhelming. At that moment, John's breathing stopped, and he spoke. In this life, Ben, you must act when it occurs to you, or you've already lost. He shifted his arm. I saw his eyes glitter in the dark, and I knew he had won. I came for the painting. He glanced at the forlorn light outside. At this hour? I don't think so. What's troubling you? His voice was low and confident, confiding, and he made no reference to the blade in my hand. Here was the John of old once again, the one who had built these wonders, the one who had won my trust, and it was all I could do not to blurt everything out there and then. John, I have a task in life, or I had one, at any rate, and that was to produce art. I understood it. It didn't make me happy all the time, and I didn't always succeed at it. It made my life harder in many ways. But this island has changed me, and I don't know what I should do anymore. A sea change. I knew the reference well enough. I don't feel like I've become something rich and strange. John sat up. Is there something in particular on your mind? Tonight's unveiling, tomorrow's closure. He paused. Something else. All of it. It's all overwhelming. You must trust me. Look at the things I've shown you already, and imagine what you will be shown in the world to come. I do trust you, I truly do. But you keep hinting that Kara and I are important to the future of this place. All right, Ben, if you want the chapter and verse, I want you and Kara to be my heirs. I want you to run the island once I am dead. Clear enough for you? He groped his eyes on me as I groped for reply. Why? I knew Kara was right for it as soon as she came here. She has the will to continue the species. She may think she wants a career or wealth, but I see what she really wants. Then you came, someone who understood being an outsider from their early days, who didn't grow up thinking everyone would come to them. Someone unimpressed by money, someone with Angus. You have exactly the virtues this place requires. You've only known me a few weeks. Feels longer. He bared his teeth in a smile. Everything will be plain tomorrow evening, but I do need to know you see the truths, and I've shown you. Don't doubt me now. I could do nothing in reply except nod. Thank you, John. My mind is clear. When we started this process, you said you wanted to see the reality of your subjects, show them something of their own self. Do you feel you've seen me? Will you show me who I am? I met his clear, unclouded gaze. I will. The smile reappeared on his face like a card reappearing at the top of a magician's deck. Then take your picture and prepare for tonight. I arrived back at the cottage just as Francis and Joanna were leaving for work. Joanna was moving much more slowly now. Their baby was due in a few weeks, and she seemed to have passed into a mood of permanent placid acceptance, as though she had retreated from the world in preparation for the most important event of her life. It was strange to witness, yet comforting too. I didn't think any external event could affect her now, unless it had some bearing on the health of her baby. I was glad for that, for her sake. My final adjustment to the portrait of John didn't take long. Then I placed the cover back on, screwed it tight enough to deter casual viewers from removing it, and put the canvas in the corner of the room. It would shortly be transported to the venue for tonight's unveiling. With that done, I packed the brushes away in my painter's roll, smallest to largest. The other tools of my trade, so expertly recreated or mimicked or cloned by Sir John, went into their allotted places too. I imagined the brushes being displayed in a museum one day as relics of John. If what Bianca had discovered was true, of course, maybe the age of the museum was coming to an end. Maybe John's new remnant of the species, fresh and young and needing only to survive, was the answer. We could have no time to learn complicated skills, only time to grow and fruit and die. And yet, what if I was wrong? Or Bianca had misinterpreted what she had seen? What if I had demolished my future here because of some combination of circumstances the two of us had completely misunderstood? Yet, always behind that thought came the next question. What if we were right? Inheriting the island would mean nothing if what we had found was real. And in that event, the most important thing was keeping the island in safe hands. I knew things about John he couldn't have worked out, I knew yet. His youth, his school days. I knew his parentage even. I must take advantage over that. My painter's roll was tightly wrapped. The sketches I had produced there during time were neatly packed away on a shelf. I took a final look around the studio, wondering when the doors would next be opened, and left to spend the day in preparation for the evening to come. Spring was well advanced by now. The few trees not yet in leaf at the time of my arrival had shaken themselves out like birds of paradise, startling in their plumage. The birds themselves seemed dazzled by it, leaping from branch to branch, calling to each other with joy. Even now, in the late afternoon, the sun still stood above the horizon. Before the evening meal, there was all hands gathering planned in an arena outside the dining hall. The portrait, now with a ceremonial cover on, had been moved to a chamber beneath the hall. Once everyone was present, it would be brought out and its image cast onto a large screen erected for the occasion, visible to everyone. I realized, looking at the screen now, that it covered exactly the spot from which the elephant had emerged a few weeks ago. John had asked me to say a few words, and I had assured him I would. The unveiling of the portrait, however, was just part of the evening's events. Afterwards, we would eat together, the last dinner before tomorrow's closure. I wondered if he could still believe I thought Clara was coming back. I felt a wave of grief remembering how long I had clung to that belief. A crowd had gathered on the slopes of the hub around its edges, and in the central area, long pine benches had been set out for whoever might need them. The children on the island were here too. The youngest were strapped to their parents' chests, the older ones gathered at the front. I couldn't help wondering how my actions tonight would wrench their lives onto a different course, and then I thought of John in his own childhood, himself just a boy in a closed world, about to be torn from seam to seam. So many people depended on this place and this man, and I wondered again whether my plan was wise. It didn't matter now, in a way, I'd gone this far. Part of me thought the younger John would approve. The screen was at the far end of the hub, cutting one end off. We were standing at that end behind part of the gantry that held it up. Bianca, Knight, John, and I. There was no sign of Monroe. Had anyone missed him? I wondered. I wished I had left him some water. Bianca and I avoided each other's gaze. The last thing we wanted was someone to see our expressions now and realise what we had planned. So I go out. Ben, I say a few words, introduce you, you say a few words, you press the button in front of you, and the painting will appear on the screen. Everyone claps, then you hand over to Angela, and she wraps up. We dine, we celebrate, and in the morning you wake up to half the island wanting you to paint them too. All right? All right. Good. He stepped out to the centre of the stage and breathed in the applause, seeming to swell up with like a hothouse flower in the sun. Eventually he raised his hands for silence. I know how unusual it is to have every one of us gathered here at the same time. Nonetheless, here we all are. The hospital beds are empty, the security towers too. The chefs have assured me dinner will be served at the usual time, and they've guaranteed it won't burn. Laughter at this. It's amazing, isn't it? All of us, this whole society together. Every one of you here is an expert. You know everything about 100 arts, feeding people, clothing them, housing them, sanitation, medicine, engineering. All the vital arts of modern civilization are preserved here, ladies and gentlemen, and in a crew gathered from so many different corners of the earth, we are here. We have made it. I love to say we're building it. I tell you now, we have built it. The crowd of collective sigh of unspeakable content. Some of you have been with me from the start. Some of you I've known for a few weeks, but I know you all. I'm so proud of you. I have only been blessed with one child, wherever she's got to. Bianca? There was laughter at this, but I feel like a parent to all of you. This island, this sanctuary, has been our creation between us, and I feel proud too, as any parent, of the great things that will happen here. We have the world's flora and fauna safely stored, waiting for the madness out there to end. Here, here is where the decline stops. Most important, we have the finest 4,000 people in the world. 4,261 of you came here when I made my offer a few weeks ago. Just 30 people departed. No more than 30 decided they couldn't cope with paradise. They were taken back to the mainland and I wish them luck there. Not too much luck, of course. A grin, because I know they've turned their back on the greatest luck of all. They and their skills shall be replaced with ease. Already, there are dozens of new lives among us, lives that will grow and strengthen and maintain this place in years to come. We have planned no great ceremony. All that remains for me is to do this. He clapped his hands once. A few seconds later, the crisp, flat sound was answered by a distant, rolling boom of thunder, which crackled on for 20 seconds before dying away. That noise, ladies and gentlemen, was the sound of the tunnel's ceiling being detonated at 2 points. It would take a good while to clear that lot for anything or anyone to either arriving or leaving. We are, all of us, now officially in it for the long haul. There was a pause as the audience took in this meaning. Then the applause returned, slowly at first, but it built and built to a roar, clapping and cheering too, and the crowd held that note for an age as John stood before them and raised his hands. He had tricked us all, and they loved him for it. In that lasting roar, he glanced towards the side of the stage where we few were standing. He caught my eye, and there was a look of glee on his face. The island's god had closed us in prematurely, had lied again and again, gulled his chosen people into staying, and he was looking back at the crowd again, basking in the light. I leaned towards Bianca. Does this change anything? She had to speak loudly over the crowd's applause, but Angela was standing far enough from us so she would not overhear. I think it does. I can go now. Start things earlier, she said. You'll have to talk for a while, though. Try to keep them going until you see the sign. Go then, I'll find you. She slipped away, not a moment too soon. The roar was dying down now, and Pemberley began to speak again. There is one more thing to show you. A month or so ago, you may remember we took in one of our most recent recruits here, a young man called Ben. He's an artist, a prodigiously talented one, and for those of you who know her, he is also engaged to be married to our own most precious Cara. Another squall of applause and an answering stab of fury inside me. How dare he mention her name to these people? Ben has just finished his first commission for us here, and we thought the unveiling might work well tonight. He looked sideways at me again. Ben told me soon after he arrived here that a painting is a way of looking at a person, of truly seeing them. In the months ahead, we will see the truth about each other as never before. I trust that Ben has seen the truth about me, and in him we will keep one of humanity's finest art forms alive. You'll all be seeing a lot more of him over the coming months and years, and he'll be seeing all of us right to the heart. So please, welcome him now. I took one last look at Angela, standing with a smile plastered to her face, and stepped out. John and I crossed paths as he returned, and he leaned in and took my far arm. They're all yours. I could not tell whether he heard my reply over the noise of the applause, but I think his expression changed a fraction as I spoke. This is for Thomas Candler and for Cara. And then he released me, and I was at the centre of the stage. As I glanced at the side, he seemed to be muttering something urgent. Tonight. Once I reached the lectern, the lights on me from each side were bright, and it took for a while my eyes to adjust. The brightness helped to calm my nerves, but my hands still shook as they rested on the lectern. As you've heard, I'm Ben. I'm a painter. I think you're all doing something remarkable using the skills you've learnt. You're the ones who've made this place. My skills are more limited, but I do think paintings are important, for just the reason John said. The greatest artists a few centuries ago painted stories, moments of a battle being won or lost, acts of mercy or heroism or vengeance. That isn't quite what I've done, but I think you need to know the background to this image before I show it to you. So I want to tell you about a young boy. His name was Jacob Mann. I couldn't see much in the light, but at the side of the stage I was aware of Night starting. She did not move, though, because John had laid a hand on her arm. He was watching me with care, and with something almost like a smile on his face. Jacob was born a half-century ago, and he grew up a long way from here, in a community like this one, but much harsher. The people living there were stripped of their goods, like ship being shorn bloody. They were in a thrall to the man in charge. He was Jacob's father, and he brought his son up to expect greatness. But eventually his outrages and his abuses grew too great to ignore. The world came knocking and the place fell apart, and the young Jacob escaped, an orphan now. his name was changed, and he moved across the world, came to this country. He was educated, and when he reached his majority, he inherited his father's money and started to spend it, building the world to come. But he had remembered the lessons of his childhood. He knew the old world, the weak and decayed world of the past, would be ending soon, and it was his duty to help bring that about to an end. I looked sideways again. John had not moved, had not even taken his hand from Knight's arm. He was watching me, as if in a trance. The crowd was motionless, so still they looked like a painted backdrop. I took a deep breath. Eventually his practice was finished, and he gathered his chosen people on an island and prepared to close the barrier between them and the rest of the world. If that was all he had done, it might have been an end to the story, but he had created one other trick as well. A new technology, if you like, a way of shortening life. It would make sure that nobody lived past a certain age. He would cut human lifespan in two. After lengthy trials, his new technology was complete, and all he had to do was release it. Let it be carried on the air. In future, he thought, nobody would live long enough to create the kind of fortune that he had destroyed the world around him. There would be no elders ruining things for their inheritors, only children and their parents working to survive and build a new world. A simpler world, humble before God, and a small group of the select in a green garden. He tried out his new invention on a few people on the island. One was a man called Thomas. Thomas was exposed to this invention and he died. Now our leader is about to try and release this creation further. That's why you're all here. You're here because you're young. You will live long enough to keep this place going, to pass on your skills and your genes, and then you will drop before you are 40. They were murmuring now in consternation, but they listened still. This in his vision. Humanity reduced once again to its proper state. He loves his father's God and he loves nature, and yet above these two feelings, he hates you all. This permanent reduction of us is what he wants, but it's not too late to stop this invention from getting out. I know we can't prevent it. I know we can prevent it. I knew nothing of the sort, and I felt sick wondering if John's poison was already spreading across the world, but I could not let him see that. I've spoken too long. Because I want you to know the kind of man whose care you have placed yourselves under. He once said it was worth launching a lifeboat if your ship was sinking. He even said it'd be worth sinking the ship to ensure the lifeboat got away. Behold the man. I moved to the side, removed the cover from the easel, and pressed the button on the lectern. The crowd fell silent as the image swam onto the screen. I looked up and around. There he was, leaning towards the viewer, his hands locked like a magician, halfway through a trick. He was giving his customary look, both searching and accepting, human and diabolical. The light gleamed on his bare head and reflected off it before a fractured halo in the air above him, and his face was everything I'd seen in him, my scepticism, my love, and the fear I had of him now. There was compassion, ambition, monstrosity, charity, the greatest virtues, and the most wicked vice, all I could summon onto the canvas, and everything he deserved. The skull, sitting on the surface behind him, was painted from memory, a late edition. There'd only just been time to add it, let it dry before this moment. Its empty eyes watched the living man. John was next to me now, and I took a step backwards. He raised his voice. Stop, stop, my friends. I wanted to let Ben here say his piece. Suffice it to say, none of what you heard was true. As I think it's obvious, he is not well. No, I was not speaking into the microphone anymore, but I knew what I had to do. I had to stay on the stage, not lose my liberty. Just a little longer, I could tell people were approaching me from the other side too, but with caution, and I kept my face towards John in case he rushed me. I heard a crack in the distance, then finally, followed by a shout from the crowd, and turned in the direction people had started to look. There was a plume of smoke in the darkening sky, thin, yet, but swelling, and not in the southwest, not where the tunnel had been detonated. It was further round that, by the site of the island's seed vault. People were pointing it out to each other now, and there was more shouts as the plume thickened and began to billow. Then a great roar as one of the oxygen tanks went up. Thank God, that was my cue to leave. John turned back to me. What have you done? He was speaking just to me, but the microphone caught his words, and his voice had lost its gentle tone now. Did you do this? Not alone. He glanced at the side of the stage again and seemed to notice for the first time that his daughter was missing. I stepped backwards. A party of Pemberley's men had gathered at the other end of the stage, waiting for me. There was only one gap left I could see beneath the screen, along the long green path south of the hub. I turned back to John and gestured past him to where Knight stood at the side of the stage. She was at Green Martin too, wasn't she? It's always been the two of you together. The name of the childhood home did not provoke him to fury. He turned to look at Knight, then back at me, his face a total blank, and that was my moment to run. As I moved, I saw a small detachment of people streaming towards the source of the fire. Pembley's men at the end of the stage had clearly decided to take no part in that endeavour. I heard the feet behind me and the whine of carts suddenly in motion, and I left the path, curving back around the edge of the hub and heading north. I knew exactly where I was going. Well, that's the end of chapter 31. Just 2 chapters to go, but it's so warm, so I'm going to go and take a break, and I'll come back and read more to you. Maybe not from Paris, though, a little bit later. Hope you're enjoying the view behind me. It's a beautiful scene here in Paris. Have a good day.